everyone, it's me, James. We're back. Time to go live again. Very exciting. I get to introduce the next speaker, which is going to be really easy because the next speaker is me. So let me tell you a little bit about me. I have been part of the Envato community for about 10 years. I think I have my 10-year badge. I started out as a customer buying my first theme from Parallelis, which is a Power Elite author, way back in the day. Then I was actually on an author team. I was part of the Astoundify team for a while, another Power Elite author, helping do customer support for them for a little while. So I have been on the front lines of dealing with all of the things that come up from customers as you navigate their questions in ticket format. And then most recently, I actually joined Envato as a staff person. I did that back in 2016 and have been here ever since, first as a WordPress evangelist and now in my role as the author engagement lead, which is really awesome because it means I get to spend the majority of my time hanging out with authors, talking to authors, and thinking of incredible ways to make the experience for authors as great as it can be and having fun along the way as well. But today, I'm so pumped because I get to talk about something that I have been so excited to talk about for a very long time. And it's all about how to sell well with Envato in 2020. And this is a question that comes up all the time. Every time we do a Q&A with authors, when we are doing our conferences or doing surveys, they're always asking this question: how can I sell better? What can I do to increase my sales? In fact, in the last session, I think I saw 5 or 6 questions that were all focused on this topic. So I'm very excited to be able to share with you as much as I can on this topic. And yeah, so let's get stuck in. I guess the first thing we have to acknowledge is that right now, everything is different. Like if you would have asked me a month and a half ago if the situation we're in now is where we would be, I don't think I would have had the faintest idea. Back then I was preparing to actually fly to India and fly to Bangladesh. But it just shows you that things are different. Like everything is always changing. Market dynamics are always changing. How we sold a month ago isn't the way that we're going to be selling today or even tomorrow. But that's not just true in the last month. That was true this time last year. That was true the year before that. You see, change is something that we all have to deal with. It's a constant, right? And if change is the only constant, how do you run a marketplace business? How do you figure out how to sell well and do all these things when the conditions and the way the game is played is constantly changing? Is there room for new authors and new items when the ecosystem seems so well populated, when there's tons of new content coming in, new products, new items? Is there room for new players to get established and to have the kind of success that people who got there first 10 years ago did? Well, as far as I'm concerned, yeah, always. There is always an opportunity and there's always room for new authors and new items with the right strategy. And that's the key. See, it doesn't have to cost a lot, but you do have to work for it. See, today I want to talk to you a little bit about my strategy, my 5-step strategy for selling well on Envato in 2020 and beyond. You ready to go? I hope so. I am. I'm fully loaded on my jelly beans, so let's get stuck right into it. So the first thing I want to talk about, the first step in my strategy is to build your audience first. When I was growing up, funnily enough, living in Australia and working with independent creators wasn't far off what I had planned for my life. But back then, I was involved in the music scene and I was working with bands. Now, I wasn't necessarily the person singing or being the musician, but I was like the business guy. I was the manager. I was the one trying to figure out how to get bands, more gigs, more shows, doing promotions and things like that. In Quebec, where I grew up at the time, when I was 16, I organized like one of the largest music festivals of its kind at the time. So that was kind of where I was starting from. And as I got more and more into that world, I started to hear a lot from musicians about what it actually takes to make it in the music business. And what they often said to me was that before a label will even entertain you, before they'll even really get started into a conversation with you, they want to know what you're bringing to the table. They want to know what kind of presence you have, how you've been able to establish yourself, how much investment they're going to need to put in to help you become known. And one of the things that bands would tell me, and I think of one band in particular, said that having a built-in audience before you approach a label is really important. And I think that's the same as well for authors that are trying to get started in 2020. In today's ecosystem, in today's environment where there's lots of different ways to sell and lots of different places to get known, having your audience set up and building your audience first is step one on the journey of getting there. But how do you do that, right? I mean, how do you build your audience? Well, let's talk about it. Let's unpack it a bit. I think you need to be specific about who your audience is. When I often ask authors, who do you want to buy your item? First thing they say is everyone, anyone, please, somebody, just buy my item. You see, if you try to sell to everyone, you will reach no one. The best companies out there, the ones that thrive and do really well, are the ones who get really, really clear about who their customers are. They pick their customers. So that's the first thing. The next thing is to focus on creating value. This is another thing that I see everywhere, right? When we can create value using tools at our disposal, that's going to help us grow our audience. So it's about sharing what you know about what you sell and giving it all away for free. Now, I know it sounds counterintuitive, but it works. You see, the greatest value that you can give to your audience comes from the intersection between what you know and what pain points your users experience. When you're able to actually speak into the problems that your customers are having and create value for them, you find that they will be more willing to talk to you, more willing to get involved with you and spend time listening to what you have to say. And finally, here in at least building your audience or growing your audience is to master the tools. And social media in particular is one of the ways that I think is amazing for authors to actually grow their audience, particularly Instagram and YouTube. I mean, these are great tools for growing your audience, and they don't cost anything to use, and you can quickly grow. I was doing some research online and found out as I was going through that 70% of Instagram users have less than 1,000 followers. That means that if you can get above that line, if you can get your Instagram account the right way, don't buy followers, but if you can get your Instagram account over 1,000 followers, then you're officially an influencer. Congratulations. Email is another great way that you can grow your audience. Again, as long as you are creating value. See, collecting emails and only sending sales messages creates no value for your potential customers. Value is the hook that keeps people engaged with you. Once you're here, then you can begin to create demand for your brand. And that's the next thing. I'm just going to move this into focus here. All right, so let's create demand for your brand. Well, what do I mean by that? Well, what I mean is that who you are matters just as much as what you sell. See, we've been through this before, I think, or been through this in a lot of other industries where we're starting to see this move, this transition away from a broadcast mentality where I tell you what you need to buy and you go out and buy it, to one where who you are matters just as much as what you sell. We want to know your carbon footprint. We want to know the names of the people that are behind the brand. We want to know what the story is that you're telling, because people don't buy products anymore. They buy stories. That's the marketing trend. That's where everything is going. So what story are you telling about who you are? To create demand in your brand, It means to invest in conversations, not conversions. How much of your marketing effort is focused on convincing people to buy your items? If you look back to the last Instagram post that you made or Facebook post that you made, was it about your story? Was it about the conversation you want to have? Was it creating value? Or was it just telling somebody to buy your latest item or to find your latest product on ThemeForest? Right? What's your engagement like on those types of marketing posts? How many people get involved? Is your personal Instagram or Facebook account or VK account more engaging and engaged than your business one? What does that mean? Why do you think that is? I found this quote on Instagram, funny enough, from somebody who was talking about this, and Jeremy Mura is the writer, and he says, don't just give one moment of value, become a person of value. A person of value will always have more because people will want what they have. And I have a great example of this. So Connor Fowler is a graphic designer. He's based in the UK, and he came out to our London event back in June 2019. And when we met, he was just hanging out. He wasn't even there necessarily as an author. He was just there as somebody who loved design and wanted to expose himself to a world of design that he'd never been involved in before. And he brought along a friend. And I started to follow him on Instagram, which is really cool. And one of the things that he did was he started this project a couple of months ago where every day he would release a couple of logos based on a letter of the alphabet. And so he did a 26-day project for 26 letters in the alphabet. And his challenge to himself was to spend no more than an hour coming up with as many concepts as he could, really quick, really easy, and then putting them out on Instagram and seeing what happened. What happened was that he started to create conversations around the things that mattered to him and found an audience that was just as passionate about it as he was. He was able to showcase his skills without asking for anything in return. And by the end of his 26-day adventure doing this, he was being begged to make his logos available for sale by people who were most likely to buy, his audience. It was incredible. And so when we talk about creating demand for your brand, or when I talk about that, that's the kind of thing that I think helps separate good from great. It's what helps you as an independent creator in a sea of other people who are doing similar things stand out. Create demand for your brand by being personable, by being a person of value. All right. Next on the list is to actually talk to your audience. Talk to the people that you're interacting with. Talk to the people that you want to invest in you. Get in front of them. Follow your audience, not your competition. I mean, their pain is your opportunity. So if you're not talking to them, you don't know what it is that's going to be the difference between them buying your product and buying somebody else's. What pain points do they have? How do you know? How are you finding that out if you're not talking to them? Don't focus on what your competition is doing. Don't spend time investing in market research necessarily that way of only seeing what your competitors are doing, but focus on what your customers are actually asking for. Maybe your competitors are building things because they know who their target audience is, and they're working really hard to build tools and build things that match that. But if all you're doing is copying what they're doing or seeing a trend or following along on a trend, you're not actually understanding who your audience is and building and catering to them. You're just building for what you think somebody somewhere might buy. Does it make sense? So seek input and feedback from your audience. I can't tell you enough how valuable this is. And every UX person in the world will be carrying this banner. But the more you can invest time and effort into actually talking to your customers or your audience, and if you can, face-to-face, get on a chat with them, on a Skype, on a Google Hangout, Zoom, whatever it is, and find out from them directly what makes them tick. What are the things that are causing them challenges? Where are their issues? I think Sunny did a great job presenting on who our customers are and what some of their challenges are. I mean, one of the things, the themes that comes through Sunny's talk is this idea of the importance of solid documentation. And I know it's the worst part of creating an item, especially a theme, is to go through and do all the documentation. But the better job you do on that, the more likely you are to have incredibly valuable customer experiences and create loyal customers who will come back over and over again. Look at what customers are, or your audience is asking for. What are the things they're following? What are the things that speak to them? Do some surveys. Do everything you can to figure that out. All right. Well, that's number 3. Number 4 is to take the time to get it right. See, great ideas, they take time. So don't rush them. And I know that's hard because in a world where new is where you get your most exposure, or where you used to get the most exposure, creating faster, creating more was the ticket to revenue. But as you've seen, we're moving to a world where better is better, and better will get rewarded. So if that's the way the market is going, and if that's the way things are going, invest the time to get it right. Pay attention to all of the details. You got to find the balance between quality and quantity. But, and I respect that, but, do it in a way that doesn't sacrifice quality, right? So if you can, get yourself going on 2, 3, 4 items at a time, and, get yourself into a schedule where you're taking enough time to make it the quality product it needs to be, but you have that launch flow that's staggered so you can keep yourself where you need to be exposure-wise. So that's one tip. And then the other thing is just remember that attention to detail separates the good from the great, right? Is the grammar in your live demos perfect? This was a comment I made in I think it was Hanoi, where we were actually at the venue and they had posted some English up on the wall, but the grammar of the English that they used to a native English speaker didn't make sense. And so if I was their customer, that to me would be a sign that maybe the detail isn't there in the product if they can't do it in the demo. Just a random thing. But are there any hiccups in your onboarding flow? Like, go through it. Take somebody who's never been through it before, and see what it's like for them to install your demo content, and to get going through installing your theme, if that's the kind of items you're creating. If you're doing PowerPoint presentations, think through the size of your file and what kind of experience it is to open up a PowerPoint presentation and have none of the images there, and how somebody's supposed to navigate through that. Are you properly commenting your code? Are you using best practice when layering your designs? Are your graphics and messaging consistent across your item pages and your author page? When we were in London as well, I've a couple of years ago, we did our first event in London, and a Power Lead author called CodeTP, theme author there, told me like he was really excited. He had a brand new theme that he was working on, and he was so close to launching it. He was really, really good. So I said, oh, that's great. Can't wait to see it. And so time went by, and throughout the year, I would check in on him and see how he was doing and how his product was going. So, oh yeah, it's coming. I just have a couple more things to work out, just a few more details. And so a whole year comes around, and we were ending up hanging out and at an event in London again, our second event in London. And I asked him there, I'm like, dude, where is this new theme that you promised me? You said it was going to be great. I'm waiting for it. And he said, oh yeah, it's so close. I've only got maybe like 4 or 5 months left on it. I was like, 4 or 5 months? You've already been working on it for a year. He goes, yeah, I know, but I just want it to be great. I just want it to be good. And so sure enough, he, 3 or 4 months later, I get an email from him out of the blue that says, James, it's ready, and it's live. And I tell you honestly, I went and I downloaded that theme. It was everything that you would hope a theme would be. The documentation was great. The user experience was great. Everything about it felt elevated, felt like I was getting more value than what I was spending. And I'm not saying that everybody has to spend a year and a half on their items, but getting that balance between quality and quantity, and for him that worked. He was just one guy, one person doing that, doing all the coding and all the design. Can you imagine what you can do if you've got a team of 2, 3, 4, 10 people who are investing that kind of time into your products, into your items? It's great. And he's a great guy as well. All right. So the last thing. So we've gone through these 4 different things. They're all things you can do. The last thing is to amplify your reach through distribution. What do I mean by that? Well, join everything you can at Envato. Get involved in whatever you can, whether that's market, elements, 2020, place it. Pay attention to the signals Envato sends about what is trending. Like what we send in our author email newsletters, for example. If you're not subscribed to that, or if that's going to your general ticket inbox, you're missing out on us sending you details every month about what customers are telling us they want. So I highly encourage you to subscribe to that if you can. I think you can do it through community.envato.com. Right on the homepage there is a subscribe button. So definitely get stuck into that if you can. And then let Envato supercharge what you're already doing. So watch the forums for new sales and marketing opportunities and get involved in that. Help Envato discover and lean into new trends so we can push them out to interested segments. If you're working in a new area, so for example, I saw somebody mention Swift, and I know Swift's been around for a few years, but if we've got a groundswell of authors who are committed to creating items in a specific type of thing, let us know that that's a trend so that we can open up a category, we can get that in front of customers and hopefully get some traction for you and the kinds of items that you want to create. Matt Cox, who used to kind of do my role actually before I did it, works at Envato in our Tuts community now and manages our Tuts experience. He used to do a lot of work on managing the sales. You might have recognized him from the forums. And I remember when I first got going at Envato, he would do these sales like Cyber Monday or sales around some of the different events that we would have here at Envato. And he would always tell me that the authors that have figured out how to create their own energy this way are the ones that do the best when it comes to sales and marketing opportunities through Envato, because they've already got that engine going. So when they come to the table and they bring an item and they mark it down and they join the sale, that's just like pouring fuel on the fire. And they're the ones that end up succeeding and getting the full advantage of what sales at Envato can do. So when you're doing all of these things and you've got all these steps in place, it's setting you up not just for selling on a day-to-day basis, but for really accelerating your selling ability when Envato steps in and can supercharge it through some of our own marketing initiatives, whether that's email, big campaigns, you name it. Well, that's the 5 steps in my strategy, but I want to challenge you. I want to challenge you to take a 30-day, challenge, okay. I want to ask you or invite you to take the 30-day challenge. And let me tell you what this is. So if you're serious about wanting to sell well, create something of value for your target audience every day for the next 30 days. Don't try to upsell or convert them. Just try to provide value and grow your audience. Interact with everyone who engages with you and see what happens. All right. I did this challenge a couple of months ago and had some amazing results. I used Instagram as my medium for doing it. But whatever works for you, find where your audience is or where you want to find your audience. If you know where they live, whether that's Facebook or Instagram or YouTube or VK, find them and grow your audience. Provide value to them for 30 days. You don't have to start today, figure all that stuff out. But if you can do that, and do it for 30 days, I can guarantee you're going to grow your audience. And you're going to grow your ability to sell to that audience, especially if through creating value, you can create demand for your brand. All right. So here are the 5 things. Build your audience first. Create demand for your brand. Talk to your audience. Take the time to get it right. And amplify reach through distribution. All right. What I love about Envato is that it creates the secure, quality verified environment for people all over the world to transact with each other in the exchange of digital goods. I couldn't sell on Envato to people in a lot of different countries without Envato. And because they're here, it allows us to do things in ways that we probably would have a hard time doing on our own. There is value in participating in the ecosystem beyond just a large community of customers if you can figure that out and navigate through it. But in 2020, selling is a shared responsibility. It's not just on Envato, and it's not just on you, it's shared. So these are the 5 steps, okay? They will take time, but not as much time as you might think. So don't be afraid to invest in the effort. Well, that's it. That's my talk. That's me giving you my insights into how to sell well. Now we're going to transition to Q&A. You ready? I'm ready. Now, I just want to say, I've been watching the questions come up, or the comments here. And if you're campaigning for people to upvote your question, that's cool. But like, don't distract too much from the talk. I felt like my talk was amazing. And so I want everybody to participate in that too. All right. So let's see, how are we going here? I'm just going to do a quick check-in here, see what everyone is saying. And all right, the top question is, all themes and code scripts are purchasing by null ID and nude scripts and Git uploading. What is the action plan to control it? We are working months together. This guy's publishing freely. Envato must support authors. Thanks. Okay, that's not related to my talk at all. Thanks for the question. Making an item featured. On which criteria you select an item to be featured? Again, not really related, so I'm going to skip over that one. Still going through, how do you see Audio Jungle in 5 years? Another great question for a later post. Heart rejection, that's the same question. Need better analytics, and also the sales statement. What tools Envato plans to implement for us to stay in connection with our customers? All right, this is finally a question I can answer. Now, here's the thing, okay? If you're building your audience first, you already have the tools to speak directly to your audience. Whether that's through email or Instagram or YouTube, you already have control of where your audience is. If you're expecting Envato to give over like data about who customers are, they can't do that. Legally, they can't. That's a privacy issue. So unfortunately, it's not going to happen where Envato is going to do that. But what you can do is take on what's in your power to take on. So if a customer buys something from you and they register on your site for support, that's an opportunity for you to build a connection and invite them to join your mailing list or invite them to follow you on Instagram, which then gives you the ability to communicate directly with them when it comes time for you to promote a sale or to talk about your next item release. All right. So I should have started answering that here, and that's done answering now. Is it possible? Nope, not a question related. Wow, lots of great questions in here. I'm just trying to find ones that I can answer. Here's a great one. If they don't leave a review, how do we find who our audience is? Great question. And you know what? This is a question that I think a lot of people, especially in the audio space, ask, because that relationship is very transactional. Like, why would I leave a comment, right? It's just an audio track. I bought it. Move on with your day. And I think that, again, it comes down to your ability to tell stories. So, we talk about people buying stories, not products anymore. What are the stories around your products? This is something I've been saying for years, and I don't know if any authors actually pick this up, but when you actually invest time in creating a story around your track, it creates a reason for someone to stay beyond the purchase, right? And so I think for you, reaching your audience is about figuring out ways to help them stick around beyond the purchase. So that could be a hook like, hey, if you want to get, an enhancement to this item, right? Or I've got a 5-second version or a 10-second version to this that is available. Just sign up for my mailing list, and I'll give it to you. That's fine, right? Like, obviously within our exclusivity rules and making sure you're following all the guidelines that are on Envato. Like, we don't want you doing anything outside of that. But finding ways to extend that relationship, you're not going to get everyone, but go for the ones and twos and start to build out from there. And you can do that through Envato, or don't start with Envato. Start with your target audience, the people that you think are best placed to answer or to buy your products, and go after them through Instagram or YouTube or wherever they live. So that would be my suggestion on that. All right, I'm just doing a quick time check here to make sure that I am doing all right. I want to make sure I'm not going over. $3:15. Guess, I don't know, guess we're doing all right. So I'm just taking a look. Lots of comments coming in. That's great. See if there's anything else here that I can answer. Hard when I'm the one running it. Normally I would have had this all prepared ahead of time for the speakers so that they could do this. Can we get a recording of this webinar? As I would love to go back to this and understand each point, as they're much deeper and complicated to understand so quickly. Yes, absolutely. And in fact, if you love it and you want to dive deeper into that, I will go to the forums. I will set up a thread and I will go through it point by point and give you as much resource and information as I possibly can after this is over, because I think this is really important for authors. So the answer is yes, you can get a recording. We'll have it up for about 24 hours. And then afterward, I think we're going to try and distribute it and maybe add some flashy intros and things, and then make it available again. So yes. All right. I'm just taking a quick look here. Probably only have a minute left. What are methods for marketing you suggest most? Facebook, Google, email, or which is best according to you guys? Awesome question. I love it. So marketing, I think, again, remember what I've been saying. It's almost like unmarketing. So rather than trying to figure out how to put your product in front of people, figure out how to get engagement with the target audience you're going after. If you're still thinking, I gotta sell, you're missing the point of how marketing is changing and how relationship is changing. Yes, that's important. And yes, there's a role for selling, but it's almost like you've got to do the dance a little bit ahead of time, right? So what you're trying to do is give them value. So you give them a little bit of value. You say, hey, you want to know how to get onto Elements? Let me tell you, here's one quick tip that's going to help you get onto Elements, all right? And you go, oh, that's a great tip. I wonder if he's got more tips. And then a few days later, oh, here's another great tip on how to get into Elements. Whoa, I never knew that, right? You're building value and you're hitting your audience at their pain point in a way that keeps them wanting more. And eventually you get to this point where you've got them, they're yours. And that audience will follow you and listen to what you have to say and trust you, especially if they start to see what you're saying play out in their own experience. And when you're there and you've got that, that's when you can start to do your marketing. And I would suggest that whatever platform you target for growing your audience, that's the platform you use for marketing. So if you're on Instagram and you're having those conversations and you're drip feeding those types of tips or doing that kind of thing on Instagram, then use Facebook ads to try and convert people to, or Instagram ads to convert people to your item page. That would be my suggestion, because it's going to get in front of your audience where they are. If you're using email and you're sending out regular newsletters with great useful tips, then look for ways to maybe do an upsell email or something like that. Cool. All right. Well, I'm going to end there because I think we want to have 5 minutes to transition for the next one. Andrew is up next. Andrew Hobson. He's our insights specialist in the content team. Andrew's presentation, you've got to stick around for this. If you're planning on leaving, don't. Stick around for this one and for Gabby's coming afterward, because Andrew's presentation is going to be talking about popular search trends and in-demand content types for Theme Forest and Co-Canyon. This is the customer data you've been looking for, the trend data you've been hungering after. I know, I hear it all the time. So while we transition to Andrew's presentation, there'll be a break of about 5 minutes. So definitely stretch your legs, stand up, grab a drink of water. I am out of water, so I'm going to do that. And we will see you in the next session. Thanks for all your great questions. Remember to keep them relevant so that we can actually answer them. And we will see you in the next session. Thanks, everyone.